I became an entrepreneur, that's an interesting question because I'm not I'm not sure I knew when it happened. Just one day I realized that I was an entrepreneur, and I don't remember if it was uh, a day when somebody called me an entrepreneur or somebody recognized me as an entrepreneur somehow, some way. But um, I guess it would have to be considered around the time when my brother and I decided to start a company back in 1999, a company by the name of NetSpend, short for Internet Spending, NetSpend, NETSPEND. And at the time, it was a company that my brother and I started with the hopes of enabling people to transact on the internet with their cash. You, you couldn't have said it better by characterizing it as a pain. Yeah, first of all, at the time I was living with my brother, who is a very passionate entrepreneur himself, and when you are bouncing off ideas with somebody that is that passionate about creating things from scratch, eventually you are going to create something. And for us, we were very fortunate to be living with each other at the time, because it was around at that time it was a very interesting time for entrepreneurship in general, because it was around what people call the dot-com boom, the dot-com bubble. And for us, it was interesting because as all these businesses were being created and more goods and services were being sold on the internet, we were asking each other, how are people going to pay for all these things? Even if you're buying dog food, pets.com, how are you going to pay for these things on the internet? And so for us, it was something that it wasn't over a number of years that we were planning this. It was, I would say, over a few weeks, even days, where we realized, this is something that it seems like it's such a big need that people need to have an access to a payment vehicle to make their purchases, that we instantly recognized the importance of trying to make it happen. At the time, we didn't know what we didn't know, but the only thing that we did know, which I think it was the most important thing at the time, was that it had to be done. Well, once we realized that the way this payment access was going to manifest itself was through a card, then we started thinking about, well, what does it take to mobilize people's money through a card? And that immediately takes you into the banking industry. That immediately takes you into, well, how do cards work? It's asking the basic questions, which is, how do things work? And in order to address a new way of doing something, when you don't know anything about that industry, as was the case with my brother and I, today we're considered pioneers and leaders in prepaid debit. But I can tell you 10 years ago, I didn't even know what a processing platform was. And a processing platform, later we found out that is really the systems infrastructure that many banking institutions utilize and connect to really create that transaction that happens between a consumer and a merchant. And so for us, really mapping out the entire financial services industry and who are the players and what players provide what and how do things work within each of those players was something that was crucial if we were to play in that arena. We started with $750. At the time, it was just enough to incorporate in the state of Texas. So literally, we took that money that we had in our checking accounts. We, of course, living together, we were paying the bills and we were paying rent and so on and so forth. But that was the liquid assets that we had at the time. And so we took that cash, and the first thing that you want to do if you're operating a real entity is have legal documents against that entity, and that is an incorporation process that for us it cost us roughly around $750. Yes, at 22, subtract 10 years, 11 years, and I actually didn't even know English at 11. So I, as well as my brother, although he had taken a few English courses in Mexico, so I think he had a leg up on me. But we had a lot to learn in terms of how to navigate American culture. And for us, stumbling upon the opportunities that America has for entrepreneurs was one of the greatest findings that we could have stumbled upon. Yes, that company that we started with $750 has been valued at well over $1 billion. Wow. And growing. It's still a privately held corporation.
So,
that you can really accomplish anything you can dream of. I mean, if you can think it, it can happen.